Hey,
Hey Lucas, how's it going?
good. How about you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad,
Not
thanks.
so bad.
Hey Mike,
Hey everyone, Happy
hey
New Year.
Thomas.
New Year.
Hey, I like the bike on the wall. It's nice.
Yes, I did a classic Italian. It's basically grown men cosplaying cyclists
Okay.
in
And you
Italy.
do that by hanging on the wall?
Well, no, you do a ride in it in Italy first, and then you stick it
Okay.
on the wall. Yeah,
Oh, so okay, that's a good prereq. I like it.
yeah.
Does it come down ever again, or is it like just for show now?
Well, it's only just gone up there. Yeah, I mean, I did ride it a little bit, but uh, the like the frame's 1983 and it's in like amazing condition, and I just don't want to get knocked off it in London traffic, and do you know what I mean? And then that's the end of that. So
Yeah, fair enough.
yeah, yeah. It's kind of an interesting insurance situation because like, is it a bicycle or not? Because if it's like a bicycle, then if it gets stolen, I'm not getting the money back for it. But I don't know.
But
If
now
hang
it's
a
art
bike on the
because it's on the
wall, it's a
wall.
bicycle.
Interesting. Yeah. The world of insurance is wild.
I mean, they'll use
Oh.
any excuse, right? So
Yeah. All right. I did link the notes in here. It looks like at the moment we have a pretty light agenda. So feel free to add any topics you'd like. I know a lot of people were probably out for the holidays, including myself, and I didn't even really check email. It was kind of nice, but also means that there's a lot to catch up on this week. So, um, yep. Would anyone be interested in scribing today? Um, Assuming we have get an agenda. If not, I can probably handle it today. So speak now if you're interested. Uh, leave it open for a sec. Okay, I will do it this time, but someone else can volunteer next time. How's that sound?
I'll do it, Mike. It's fine. Let me do it. I
Okay.
don't mind.
Thanks, Ben. All right. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's pretty open-ended today. So if anyone has anything specific, please feel free to jump in. Otherwise, it will potentially be a short one. You're muted, Ben, if you're talking to us. He's not. Okay. Um, yeah. Does anyone have any topics to kick it off? Lucas, not to put you on the spot, but is there anything from the nest that we'd want to talk about potentially real quick?
Yeah, maybe just that we basically stand where we stood last time when we were talking about it. The main topic that we just want to try out still before releasing the next version of the experimental SDKs, like the context propagation. We seem to have like a good point here, but still we want to try it out in the playground. I didn't get to it yet. I think I will do it like in the next days. Um, Otherwise, yeah, if someone else wants to do it, it's also fine. Yeah, and maybe kind of to that came then that I added the first draft, or maybe the first version of the spec for context propagation. Maybe for everyone that didn't have a look at this, give feedback. So I'm really not sure how strongly this should be specified or how deep, and I would really like to get feedback on that. Yeah.
Yep, I will link that in the notes. So if anyone has a second after this call to take a look, that would be appreciated. It's something that we had talked about quite a while ago, and I had implemented it in Java or JavaScript, excuse me. It's only for the server side, and it's one of those things. Dive into it if we want to officially spec it. And like Lucas mentioned, it just kind of depends on how deeply we would like to spec it. But there has been a couple of cases where this is super valuable. So I do think it's probably worth having support for it. It just depends on how granular I think we want to spec this out. Cool. Yeah, the Nest stuff is looking pretty cool, so I'm definitely excited to test it out. Kind of related to that, one of the things Ben had opened up, he did a OFEP a while ago, talking about a CLI tool. Over the holiday, I started experimenting with what that could potentially look like. I will maybe be able to give a demo. I want to kind of talk to the governance committee first before I add it to the repo, just to see if that's a direction we'd like to go. But it's pretty cool. Right now, all it does is basically try to transform like a source, which I haven't come up with a good name for it yet, but that would be a whatever different vendor or tool, transform it into some like common file, and then that common file can be used for code generation. It doesn't do anything too fancy at this point, but it does provide some nice like type safety around and like auto completion and a bunch of kind of nice quality of life improvements for like consuming feature flags. But it also is a foundation for a bunch of other things that we could use for, scanning the code for usage if we wanted to do, and diffs and all kinds of other things, even potentially migrations, at least in a basic basic way, likely without targeting rules unless we really want to get go overboard. But that is just kind of an interesting proof of concept, and I think it's quite valuable, or has potential of being quite valuable. So I can I'll follow up with the GC, see if it's something that we would like to officially support, and if so, then we can I can go ahead and pull it in and can take a look at it. But for things like Nest, I think it could pair quite nicely, because if we have like auto-generated clients that could be like injected into services and stuff, it becomes like a really nice experience for developers. All right.
So if it's taking if it's taking the like trying to make like a common kind of like intermediary format for the different vendors, is it basically kind of like de facto making like a little like flag definition language?
Ish, yes, without targeting rules. So it has context attributes. It does not have rules. So it would just say like this flag definition requires an email address, which is a string, and it's got this description. Well, actually, if we have a short agenda, I will show you very, very quickly. Just don't judge me too heavily on the code quality or anything, because it's like, yeah, it was a while I was watching TV over the holiday type experiment.
Mm.
But the main idea is you can generate like an OpenFeature flag definition here. If I can get it here, and it would basically be a client and a source, and still kind of working on the naming of that. Right now it's just a one-to-one. You have to have a source and a client, but in the future we could have this be a list that you could reference by ID or something. And then basically we can take, in this example, it's just a flag definition as input from the source, and it would generate this feature definition, which is this general structure that I was working on, which contains like some metadata. It can be a list of flags and context attributes. The actual configuration is got a lot of other properties that, like, depending on the source, could be possible. But a lot of them are optional. Things like, the management tool. We could also add things like who created the flag or when it was last updated or whatever. All those things are passed into like the little builder process, and this is the thing that I was playing with. It's basically like a builder pattern for like a type safe code generation, and it's a little bit weird to read, but it's kind of nice to work with. And it basically just like it passes in the configuration and the options, and you can just build a client. And so the output of this would be something, if I have it here, I don't. So, and so if you were to build it, so it's going to use that feature definition and hopefully just spit out a error, because that's how, let me just go through the whole thing end to end real quick. And while I'm doing this, if anyone has any agenda items too, feel free to do your stuff.
Sorry, just to add to that, an interesting thing's happened this week. Sorry, my kids are having a karaoke party outside, so get some background noise. That's them. Yeah, so we built an importer for Flagsmith and a launch darkly like importer as well. So it's kind of similar to this, but a customer wanted to import targeting rules as well, and we hadn't built that, and they just wrote some code to do it. But the interesting point was that the kind of impedance mismatch between the two sort of rule sets between Flagsmith and Launch Darkly was actually very, very small. And I know I'm right in saying no one's kind of done that like sort of fairly large task of like trying to get, do like, go through a bunch of providers and things like that. But I wonder whether, I wonder whether, there's more in common with the providers than we think. I don't know. But it's just interesting because this is kind of like, it feels like there's several parts of the project as a whole that would maybe start to benefit from.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of the
actually-
nice thing about this, because I'm using like, basically with the CLI tool, we can like, lazy load in different plugins and stuff too. So we could actually make it so if we had a solid foundation, you could like really do some interesting, like have a lot of the shared logic be part of OpenFeature, but then pull in, more custom logic for different vendors and stuff. So you wouldn't have to like build everything from scratch. So I do think there is a lot of potential here for being kind of like a solid foundation. It's like a core entry point even. Even things like GitHub Actions, it could be like a GitHub Actions scanner or something that could do certain things as part of pull requests. And like there's a lot of potential here if we want to invest in the time. And I guess that's the big question. It's like if we wanted to work together on this, I think there's a lot of benefit, but it's also potentially a lot of work. So I did get this working, so I was messing with stuff. So basically, like if you do an init, this is where there's like a little bit of it's like an inquire JS, and it will like prompt you for certain input. So in this case, we'll just say, I'm gonna do the TypeScript one, and we can do a file index.ts in this case, and then I only have the one source right now. You'll see it spits out this OpenFeature YAML. Kind of cool part is all this stuff is it has a JSON schema backing it, so you can see it like auto completes, which is kind of cool. And then if I were to run, in this case, I've built an update so that this is doing both commands at once, but it basically updates this flag definition file and then spits out like this type safe client. In this case, it's not super interesting because I don't have all like the descriptions and stuff like that. But if I were to add that to this flag definition, I think it actually literally is just description. It will like add it as, JS docs as you'd probably expect. So
Oh,
it's
that's
just
really
description.
nice.
So I could say, whatever description, this, whatever, and then I won't update it. And if I just build it in that case, you should see hopefully this. So you see we have the get and the details call, which is just a little wrapper around it. But it could be quite nice at like scale if you had like a large number of flags, and we could, make certain context attributes required and have context around who added it and why and what's it there for and stuff like that. So yeah,
Very cool.
it's still pretty early. Hopefully I can get it in a spot where get some feedback, but I think it's got a lot of potential. All right, that was the impromptu demo that I wasn't ready for.
Still works.
It didn't work at first though. A little nervous. All right, pull up the notes.
So, sorry, Mike, is that all kind of like brand new code, or are you like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
internal representation, the internal data structure, like the common data structure, is that all brand new?
Yeah, it's based on just like OpenFeature concepts, I guess, but there's nothing, it's not mapped to like flag D or any like vendor specifically. It's just like a general way of like representing feature flags essentially. So a lot of that's
have you looked into it all, like which vendors would support kind of being kind of interrogated for getting that information? I'm just curious. I'm guessing most of the more mature ones would, because I'm sure most of them have had the same experience that Ben and Flagsmith have had of like a big company that wants to do some kind of internal tool like this. But it'd be interesting to see what the overlap is in terms of if we wanted to pursue it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know that the concepts, at least currently, almost all of them would map very well to like all
I mean,
the
it's
different
feature
existing
flagging is
tools.
kind of pretty much the same, right?
So the only thing would be like how much like additional metadata could we get? But I think if we make those all like optional, and it's like the more a tool can supply, like the better the the JS docs and for JavaScript in that case, that the better the experience to some extent. So that would be kind of the direction I'd like to go. And I think it could be a nice way to kind of start it if we do like client generation is one of the first things, but then we have this nice tool that's extendable and we could, do it for all these other different use cases and just keep adding those as more and more come up. So.
I really like the design that it's kind of like reminds me of like a 2-pass compiler or something. There's like the step to get the provider specific stuff into like a intermediary language, and then a thing to turn it into Java or to JavaScript or whatever. I think that would lend itself really well to people that want to customize it for different things, and obviously different languages and stuff like that. But very cool.
Yeah, there's kind of 3 steps. So the first one would be like initialization. So you just supply it like a configuration file. Then you kind of update it or like, I don't know, compile it into this like intermediate file, and then it can be used to generate clients from there.
Neat. Very cool.
I mean, the other thing I'm just thinking, like, there's once you've got that common like data objects, there's so many different things you can use it for. Like there's like, yeah, I'm sure, if we spent, you could come up with like 7 or 8 really, really good, like, we had to do quite a lot of work to do an import export tool. Like, it'd do loads of heavy lifting.
Yeah, I guess that would be the thing we'd have to figure out is like, where's the cutoff point? Because like right now by design, I did not worry about the rule set, basically like the actual targeting rule. It may not be that big a deal like obviously for a migration, it would be kind of a bummer to lose it, but like, would it be good enough in most cases to move flags over and not have the rule? Like,
yeah, I mean,
I think that is actually a really nice division. I hadn't thought about that before, but like, because I think the rule set thing is really hard. I think I still think doing that rule set, like like trying to standardize or get like the lowest common denominator or whatever for the rule set across all the different vendors, I still think is going to be super, super duper hard. But the just generic feature flag stuff of like, there's a feature flag, it has like a description and it's owned by this team, and it takes this context and it returns this structure, or like, returns a Boolean or whatever. I think that's kind of like could be pretty generic enough that it would be pretty hard to define. Yeah. So it's an interesting way of dividing that bigger problem into 2 smaller problems of like, how do we define feature flags in a generic way?
Yeah, I think we could at least start there, right? Like, and we could always potentially add in the more like complex pieces later if we thought it was necessary. But yeah.
So I mean, that's exactly what we did. Like, and actually, so yeah, so we built the importer exporter just for flags basically, and we've had we've had we haven't had a huge amount of feedback from it, but some people have been like, this is really great. I can start to move flags around from different providers. And we all thought internally at Flagsmith, like, people wouldn't want, what's the value of doing it for targeting rules? Because you know, you're gonna have to manually validate every single targeting rule anyway, because you just can't expect it to just work. But then we had a customer who were like, well, I've got like 300 different targeting rule collections, and just getting, you know, just doing the framework of that and best effort is going to save me a ton of time anyway. So that's what they went ahead and built. But it's just really interesting what you said, Pete, because that naturally happened in exactly those two stages. So but the other thing about what you've shown, Mike, is that you'll be able to see, you know, a lot of value just by doing the first one and not having to buy off the second. But I quite like the idea of like delegating. Yeah, like if there are rules that aren't general, you could maybe delegate them to some provider specific code or something like.
Yeah, I mean, the other potential option too could be, like you said, kind of a best effort. And if it couldn't do it, we could just dump out like we were able to convert these successfully, but these ones couldn't or whatever. And then you got to migrate that by hand. It is what it is.
That's exactly
right?
what we're building at the moment. It's like, yeah, this rule set has a concept that is alien to Flagsmith or whatever, but here it is, and this is what its, you know, definition is, but you're going to have to figure out if that's still relevant for the targeting or what have you, you know.
Yep. Nice. Okay. Well, I'll try to get in a good spot. If anyone's interested right now, it's under my like personal account and it's private, but I can I can invite people or something if they want to. I've been really hacking around with it, so it's a little bit nasty at the moment, but early feedback would be good. Just don't want to set too many expectations at this point because it's still an experiment. So all right. I will tease it one more time. If anyone's got any topics, please feel free to add it. Otherwise, we can probably go ahead and wrap it up pretty soon.
Well, since nobody's biting, I'm gonna propose something. So I'd love to start doing some community sessions, some like educational stuff. So I've already reached out to Pete and Lucas, and they've both sort of agreed and have some interest to possibly present on some of these. I'd love to do it if we could do it like once a month. So if anyone else is interested in helping out and doing some basic education for our audience, please let me know and I'll get you in the schedule. And look out for those coming up soon. So.
And Stacey, are you looking for people, and this is a bit of a leading question, are you looking for people who are like experts in OpenFeature, or looking for people like is the content, you know, OpenFeature specific, or is it just feature flagging in general? Like what's the kind of
I'd love to do a combination of both if we can, but starting off, I think of like a generic sort of 101 basics of like kind of just what is feature flagging in general, I think is probably not a bad idea. We just do it from an open feature perspective of not being too vendor heavy or sales pitchy of any sort, but really just giving people the nuts and bolts to start with and concepts and things like that. And then we can sort of progress and dive deeper as we kind of get more foundational topics covered.
Got it. So really, it sounds like anyone who's on this call would be enough of an expert to be able to contribute to this.
Absolutely. That's why I'm asking. Thanks, Pete.
Yeah, you're welcome. I always feel like people are very like, particularly when it comes to like educational stuff, like educating, presenting, or whatever, people are always having a lot of engineers have a lot of imposter syndrome. It's like, oh, well, I don't really know that much about whatever. Like, I think for a lot of this kind of stuff, like anyone who's done some stuff with feature flagging knows enough to be able to explain the basics of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do we also want to introduce like how to implement providers and this kind of thing in OpenFeature? Because I think we have the two sides. We have people using it and people like wanting their homegrown solution to rely on OpenFeature. So I guess we can have different educational session here depending on the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great idea, and I would, you know, if you're interested in doing that,
yeah, I'm happy to help.
then, yeah, definitely reach out and we can get something scheduled. So yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, the other thing to kind of look out for too, it's not specifically open feature related, but just like feature flag at scale, I think would be a really interesting topic. So people that have
Mhm.
experience with that, like pros, cons, best practices, whatever, I think could be really interesting material that we could get out there.
Awesome.
All right. Oh, the last thing, I think Todd before the holidays did submit a what is it, the Contrib Fest session for KubeCon. So hopefully we get accepted. I'll definitely let everyone know when we find out, but that could be a really cool opportunity too. So once we do find out, and you happen to be at KubeCon, definitely try to contribute to that. I think it'd be a lot of fun to get a bunch of people together to hack around for a couple hours. So. All right. Anything else? Last chance. All right, everyone. Well, good to see everyone. Hope you had a happy new year, and we'll talk soon.
Cheers, everyone. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Happy New Year.
Everyone, bye.
Here.
Bye.